see the light leave your eyes!
All right, it's time to talk about one of the icons of heroic masculinity. He taught me how to be a man.
Every day is arm day, sir.
Because here's my hot take. Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire is a crash course in growing up, facing rejection, and learning what it really means to be a man.
Blimey, Harry, you say dragons. If you can't get a date, you can.
I think I take the dragon right now.
From an awkward Yule Ball dance to Ron's jealousy and Harry's quiet courage, this story reveals lessons about masculinity, kindness, and finding your place in a complicated wizarding world. So stick around because this is the Harry Potter analysis, the only way that we know how to do it. Hey, I'm Riley, and this is Geeky Stoics. So right now I'm on what I'll describe as a government-funded little field trip. And one of my best forms of stress releases, and I'll say it, I'll admit it, it's building Lego. So I was building the Lego Hogwarts castle like you do, watching a marathon of the Harry Potter movies like you do. Is there a little bit of irony in the fact that I just started making a video about masculinity for YouTube and that's how I started it? Yes, I'll never change.
I will never change.
So I was getting through Goblet of Fire and I got to the scene where Professor McGonagall announces the Yule Ball, you know, where she says it's first and foremost a dance.
The Yule Ball is first and foremost a dance.
Professor McGonagall really does. She describes this event that has this cultural and social importance within Hogwarts. And the scene's presented with like a little bit of irony. And it's kind of funny to hear the old professor talking about a lordly lion or whatever it is she says.
Every boy a lordly lion prepared to prance, Mr. Weasley.
But nonetheless, there is this significance. There's this form of rite of passage at Hogwarts that the Yule Ball represents.
The House of Godric Gryffindor has commanded the respect of the wizard world for nearly 10 centuries.
And it kind of alludes to there is this important tradition.
I will not have you in the course of a single evening besmirching that name.
These traditional values and the norms of what it means to grow up as a young wizard attending Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. It's funny because I look at this scene very differently now watching it as an adult than I did growing up because it represents something different than what's normal today. And I think a lot of that is shown through the lens of Harry and Ron's social challenges. For like any young kid, the whole idea of going to a social dance and having to ask a girl out, like this is a very relatable experience. And I think it tells us something important about the socialization that comes with having to navigate these really awkward norms even within the world of Harry Potter. Because at a very young age, for someone like Harry or Ron, something as simple as asking a girl out to the Yule Ball takes courage, takes a form of courage. And takes a form of self-confidence that you're pressured to embrace. It's that same confidence that it takes for you right now to click the like and subscribe button. I'm just kidding, not really, but actually, because that is the challenge of growing up. That is the challenge of finding those first elements of courage and confidence and self-confidence and self-worth that are so important. And it is represented in this moment in the Goblet of Fire. Probably most importantly, it takes an element of vulnerability.
So?
You have to open yourself up to rejection, one of the most fundamental fears of any young man. And even if it's something as simple as asking a girl to the dance, opening yourself up to that rejection is terrifying. And it's something that both Ron and Harry obviously and predictably don't deal with very well. Because we know the trio are friends and Ron and Hermione are friends at this point, but what we don't really know, or what Ron certainly doesn't know, is that Hermione's interested in him. He lets his own lack of self-confidence and his own pride get in the way of actually taking the risk. There's this deep but very normal insecurity within Ron that prevents him from just taking that little step of courage to ask Hermione to the dance.
Next time there's a ball, pluck up the courage and ask me before somebody else does. And not as a last resort.
So of course, left with a little other choice, Hermione makes the choice to go with Victor Crumb. And understandably, there's no reason why she would just wait around, just hoping Ron would ask. And that's the challenge of just like sometimes it takes that little bit of courage to have open and honest communication, even amongst friends. So by the time, of course, we get to the ball itself, it's time for Harry and Ron to ask out, where they just kind of go to their last resort and they ask out the Patel twins. This is something I definitely had a different experience watching now, many, many years later. here, and that is really looking at how Harry and Ron actually treat the Patel twins. Honestly, really, that's the greatest lack of character that they demonstrate, particularly Ron, in the way that they treat Pavarti and Padma. Hey, listen, I'm a Star Wars guy, and I definitely had to Google their names. This is the challenge of a positive, constructive view of masculinity. It is about respect, about empathy. It's so important that you take responsibility to be considerate and to be present and engaged in a social situation. This is like a fundamental rule of what it means to be a gentleman. And it's interesting because, like, that's not language that J.K. Rowling uses, but really that's what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with the fact that Ron is choosing to be bitter and jealous when he sees Hermione with Victor, and also is being rude and impetuous with the date who did say yes and did go with him to the ball.
Are you going to ask me to dance or not?
No.
And really, all of this kind of seems like a petty middle school interaction on the surface. But if you look at it more deeply, it's something. There's something about this tradition, this Yule Ball, that represents why these kinds of traditions matter. The idea of the school dance, the idea of healthy traditional norms that challenge young people to embrace their own rites of passage and embrace the cultural values that have been in place in Western civilization for centuries. Like, there's a reason why being a gentleman matters. You know, as a guy who was homeschooled, it is interesting because a lot of times I saw a lot of these modern traditions of the school dance or homecoming. Like, those are things that I absorbed, at least culturally, through the world of fiction, through movies, through Harry Potter, through High School Musical 3. I'm just kidding about that last part. Maybe I'm not. Listen, Troy Bolton was a man's man. I don't know. I think it's one of those things that it's a very simple scene in Goblet of Fire, but it means something really important about challenging ourselves and about challenging the next generation, the younger generation, to take those small little steps of courage, to begin to exercise those muscles. The idea of having the vulnerability and embracing the risk of rejection to ask the girl out. I think these are cultural norms that have obviously just died in the age of social media and the brain rot of the TikTok generation. Like, the idea of even asking someone out on a date is disappeared. Now it's just like hanging out or we're talking, and it's just like there's no willingness to risk the commitment and to risk the rejection that comes from actually asking. All right, so I'm editing the video and I realized I didn't even make probably the most important point, which is the whole idea of the small forms of courage and discomfort that it takes that a young Harry or Ron have to experience. Something just as simple as asking a girl to the ball. Those are the things, and that's what it takes to be a hero. And at the end of the film, when Harry Potter is quite literally willing to face Voldemort by himself, right after seeing the death of Cedric Diggory. And I think that's such an important connection to make because the arc of Harry Potter and that courage that's found, it begins with the small things. And that's really the whole point of what I was trying to say. So if nothing else, as I'm thinking about it, I think it's time to introduce my nieces and nephews to some of the Harry Potter books, if nothing else. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoy this kind of overthinking when it comes to our favorite stories like Harry Potter, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, C.S. Lewis, like, you are on the right channel. I encourage you to like and subscribe, and you're gonna see a link in the description. The very first link is our Substack newsletter where we like to talk about these stories at a deeper level, because that's like the whole thesis here at Geeky Stoics. That's your favorite stories are telling you something. The question is, are you listening?